If you have an anxiety disorder, I first want to say that you've really already made the first step of resolving the condition. A lot of people, when they first encounter anxiety disorders, something such as panic attacks, they don't initially know what's going on. And that can really make the condition a lot more frightening and kind of leave you in the dark about what to do about it. But at this point, if you've already identified your condition as an anxiety disorder, you've probably also discovered that it's a very common mental health issue. And there are really a lot of approaches that you can take to overcoming it. What I want to do here is just share with you one of those approaches, or at least something that you can add on top of other approaches. So starting with the assumption that what you're experiencing is in fact anxiety, the next step is to determine why that anxiety has arisen in your life, and then implement a strategy to reverse that trend. In most cases, the cause of anxiety lies with your thought processes, meaning the way you mentally perceive your world and what you expect from it. A person with an anxious mind often has their thoughts dominated by fear-based thinking and negative expectations. Putting your anxiety aside for a minute, are you also a worrier? Do you get nervous very often? Or do you experience stress sensations very often? If the answer is yes, don't be surprised. Anxiety, worry, stress, nervousness, they're all kind of the same thing, relating to fear-based expectations about future events, or even your current environment. Now, some worry is okay. It can be worry that motivates us to take action to improve our lives or to study for a test. For some people, anxiety is the last line of defense that gets them up in the morning, going to work, and avoiding homelessness. And it's nervousness that helps keep us alert and on guard in truly dangerous situations. However, problems arise if we develop a mental habit of worrying about trivial matters, or if normal everyday situations start to cause us to become nervous. Because theoretically, everything we do in every moment of our lives has the potential for creating worry, nervousness, or various anxiety sensations. There's always the possibility that something might not go the way we want. And if we let that perpetual flow of negative possibilities or negative potentials dominate our thinking, then sooner or later, anxiety will arise. And it may start off subtle, but it can get to the point that even when you're relaxing or doing what were once leisure activities, the overload of negative thoughts, worries, and fears that continue to linger in the subconscious mind can create a constant anxiety sensation. It may start off feeling like simple stress, but long-term symptoms of anxiety can include panic attacks, agoraphobia, mild depression, derealization, things like headaches, dizziness, and all sorts of other stuff. So this might ring a bell with you, and hopefully it makes sense, because understanding the origin of your anxiety symptoms will make many of the solutions seem a lot more logical. And that kind of understanding may also be somewhat comforting. But of course, you're probably more interested in treating the anxiety and getting on with your life. So the logical solution, you would think, from what I've said so far, would be to start thinking thoughts that are more positive and to stop focusing on the negative potential of everything in life and to start seeing the positive. This reminds me of something Albert Einstein once said, which was, the most important decision that we make in our lives is whether we believe that we live in a friendly universe or a hostile one. And that really is profound, because it really is a choice that will greatly affect how we interact with our world. And you can really go either way. Things will fall into place in accordance with what you believe. But I think in the long run, as an anxiety sufferer, that I assume you currently are, it really is in your best self-interest to try to cultivate more of an overall attitude or outlook on life that's somewhat more on the positive side. However, I also know, and you've probably discovered, that it's nearly impossible to think positive thoughts all day long. And in fact, trying to do that can actually make things worse. It can be frustrating because you have what I think of as the intellect, which is the you that automatically analyzes what you think and comes up with a thought about the thought. For example, you might try to think a positive thought about yourself, something to improve your self-esteem maybe, and then there's that little voice inside your head that argues back and says, no you're not, or no you can't, or but what if this something bad happens? And then that little voice essentially turns the positive thought into a negative thought. So to keep things simple, what I suggest is that you start by focusing on just one somewhat more positive thought, and something that's at the same time realistic, meaning it's something that you can believe. And doing this way, your intellect won't reject it as intensely or not as automatically. Okay, so as an anxiety sufferer myself, there was one particular thought that I worked with that really helped me to reverse all of my other tendency toward negative and fearful thinking. I didn't have to think about putting a positive thought to every moment of my life because I simply used that one single thought for pretty much all situations. And with time, more positive thoughts just naturally flowed from that first one. Because actually, the more I thought about this one particular thought, the more my mind actually believed it. And eventually, it really started to reshape my perceptions. It was kind of like a foundation belief that all the other more positive thoughts started to be drawn from. Kind of like a basis for a new inner voice. Okay, so you're probably wondering, what was that thought? I first want to say that I'm calling it a thought, but you might see it as a belief. Either way, whatever it started as, I continued reinforcing it until I saw it as an absolute truth in my life. Okay, so anyway, the belief that I used to begin reversing anxiety disorder, and one that you may want to try cultivating yourself, is one that says, I can handle it, or you can handle it. This means whatever you're worried about, whatever you're nervous about, whatever that negative possibility is that you fear happening, realize that you could handle it if it did happen. And when you fully internalize and believe this, you'll no longer dwell on the negative possibilities so much. They just won't be so significant. And the fact is that this new thought or belief, it's almost certainly the truth. So it'll be hard for your intellect to argue with it. And because of that, it shouldn't be too difficult to apply this thought to just about everything you do. The fact is, you've been through quite a bit in your life already to have survived this long. And for all the situations and emotional events that you've been through already, there obviously haven't been any that you couldn't handle. Nothing has killed you. You're still alive, you're watching this video, you've survived everything so far. And if the past is any indicator of the future, you'll survive a lot more. And whether you know you can or are worried that you can't, you will. The human mind's ability to solve problems and endure emotional adversity is really enormous. And if you start to trust in that inherent capacity within you, you'll just be a happier person and less overwhelmed by the negative potential that lies within every moment of life. I mean, what does negative really mean anyway? Some of the greatest things that have happened to me in my life came out of what I initially thought were negative things, but they turned out to be positive things. So once again, it's all in your perception. And when it comes to emotional possibilities, the belief that I can handle it is really a true one. So why surrender the beauty of your present moment to faulty thinking and anxiety? The only reason that you're encountering excessive anxiety or nervousness is because you've started to falsely believe otherwise. try cultivating a real feeling in your heart that I can handle whatever happens. Start seeing your world, your future, and your every moment in that new light of this new perception. And in the presence of this one true belief, your worry thoughts, negative thoughts, what if thoughts, they'll all just lose their power. And I think there's a very good chance that it'll help you overcome a fair amount of your anxiety. Just remember that whatever it is that you're worried about, stressed about, anxious about, you can handle it. Whatever the worst case scenario is, you will be able to handle it if it does happen. And with this foundation perception, negative possibilities will no longer be so significant to you. And you won't build up nearly the level of negative expectations that are currently feeding into your anxiety issues. Okay, I hope this insight has been beneficial to you. I realize that not every person is the same, so what worked for my anxiety may not be right for everyone. But if something here rang a bell for you, I want to say that this approach also works extremely well when used in conjunction with my other techniques. And if you'd like to check those videos out, you can find them at mc2method.com/panic attacks. Thank you for watching.